Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Unstoppable Overcomers. And I am your host, Dorothy Odell, for this evening. Just wanting to give a shout out to our sponsor tonight. Did you know that doTERRA essential oils can help support the body's physically, mentally, and emotionally to help you achieve optimal health? Aromatherapy is a very powerful tool, and for more information, you can get a call to our friend Bonnie who is a doTERRA wellness advocate. You can find more of her information on her website at www.beoilywithbonnie.com or connect and give her a text at via 810-414-0929. With that, I have the distinct pleasure of bringing to the screen Mr. Andrew Masonville. Andrew, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. How about you, my friend?
I'm good. Have a good day today. Very productive.
I love that. I love when that happens. And it's a short week here in Canada. So, I mean, you have to get more crammed into this week. So, I don't know about you, but I'm tired already.
Already, yep. And I got a lot of orders to make for this upcoming Easter weekend. So
Oh, I did see your post. So, Andrew, I'm very blessed. I love it when I have my locals on. So, Andrew is actually local to where I live. So, that it just makes this episode even more special. So, I'm so glad that you already have orders. And just well, let's tell our viewers what kind of catering that you do. We'll start there. Normally, I ask about your overcoming story, but since that came out first, we'll go with that. So, what orders are you referring to?
I'm just making small talk. I'm referring to the Easter weekend rush, as I call it. So Super Bowl is normally my most busiest time of the year, but anytime a holiday is coming close, I get slammed with chicken wing orders, party trays. People want the big trays that feed multiple people. So
Right.
that's what I got going on.
And guys, it's not just any chicken wing. It is a complete and total experience. That is part of Andrew's slogan, and we were blessed to have we ordered some chicken wings and oh, we ordered rice with ours last time, and I had made a post for Andrew, well, because it was good, and I'm all about passing that on. If it's in a great experience, I want people to have that experience too, and so I posted it, and I also posted Andrew's catering menu as well. And so somebody from Illinois had I don't didn't know if you've seen that, but Wendy's from Illinois, and she goes, she doesn't even eat chicken wings, but she totally would have with your marketing and how you marketed everything. So
I
kudos to you.
Yeah, I've had a few people that don't like to eat meat off the bone, and they actually ate them anyway. So that's pretty powerful.
That is. But we'll talk a little bit more about your catering business towards the end. Andrew has a powerful overcoming story. So Andrew, why don't you take it away, share with us a little bit about who you are and go into your story.
Um, well, now I am a lifestyle coach and I'm in the catering business. I'm a single dad. I have two kids, a daughter, and my son is autistic. They're 14 and 16. My son's the youngest. And yeah, I mean, just living like a single father, trying to grind it out. But it wasn't always this way, and I wasn't always happy. I wasn't always in a good place. And so I guess I'll segue into my story. So yeah, I grew up an only child, and I had pretty, I guess, basic life. My dad lost his job when I was younger, so we kind of struggled, and but they always made sure I had everything I needed. But my story is a little different because I lived with them for 15 years, thinking and believing that they were indeed my real parents. So that we'll just let's put a pin in that.
Right.
So I am, let's say, 8 years old, and I'm starting to get really lonely because I raised the only child, and I started, this is a phase where I started, crying out of nowhere because I really wanted siblings. I really wanted a little brother or a little sister or even a big brother or big sister.
Right.
So I think that just came from boredom and loneliness. I'm not really sure where that came from, but I actually, it really did bum me out. It really got me stressed out all the time and depressed. I used to go to school crying and coming home on the bus crying. And during that time, I was also getting bullied. And so, my vision of the world was completely different than most people's. I didn't think it was fun to wake up and come downstairs, put it that way,
Right.
because I had nothing to look forward to. And at least I thought I didn't. So, I grew up different. My mom, when I was 3 years old, she had an aneurysm at the top of the stairs, and she didn't fall down the stairs, but she collapsed above the steps. And I remember crawling up there as a baby, and she was lifeless. It seemed like it. And then the next thing I know, there's flashing lights, and then I remember being in the hospital with my mom a lot. We were there all the time, and she couldn't walk. So she ended up paralyzed on the left side of her body from that aneurysm. And
Wow.
so she was in a wheelchair for the majority of my life. And, I thought it was normal because that's how I grew up. And I know I spoke briefly about around 8 years old, but get a little bit more in detail. I used to come home from school. Sometimes I would go to a friend's house um, after school, and their mom would, make snacks for us and walk around and do things. And I remember thinking like, wow, like what is it like to have a mom that's like mobile and all this stuff? And so yeah, I would. But when I went home and friends came with me, I had to make the snacks. I had to take her to the bathroom. I had to get her up and into bed.
Right.
Um, yeah, it was just a different life. And little did I know it would help me later. But that's how I grew up. I grew up taking care of my mom. My dad was on afternoons, so I'd come home from school, and that my mom was my responsibility. So that grew me up pretty quick. So by the age of 10, maybe 11, 12, I'm now a young man who is much more responsible, much more organized because I was kind of forced to live that way.
Right.
And, things had to be kind of I don't know if routinized is a word, but I kind of want to say it. But yeah, we had to have a routine constantly based around my mom. And, we didn't get along. She was kind of nasty towards me for a while. And I remember going through a phase where I didn't really like my mom. I don't want to say hate,
Hmm.
but I just remember like I, the things she would say would just play in my mind for hours and days, and I just didn't like being around her all the time. So um, that would change again, but
Well,
take
considering you were taking care of her, like seriously, that as a small child having to take care of a parent and then getting this as you're taking care of her, that would be hard to swallow, I would assert. Um I was a caregiver to my parents too when I was young, but at least I knew they were appreciative of it. So wow, that has to be brutal. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, no, it's fine. I'm not really trying to bash her or nothing.
Mhm.
Obviously, I love her. But yeah, she just went through this phase, I guess, where she was probably frustrated with the world that she was in a wheelchair, and I
Mhm.
think she was just, people tend to do that stuff to the ones who are closest to them, right?
Yep.
So I think I just kind of got the the brute of that, and but there was a lot of happy times. Christmas, she always played Elvis, so to this day, when Christmas comes, it's time for Elvis in my house, and I don't
Right.
like Elvis. I just play him because of my mom, right? So, but I played. I was lucky enough to get my dad got me in sports. I was very active in sports. I played everything from badminton to basketball to football to hockey. I was very, very busy. I swam a lot. Um, and, you know, I remember the only thing I cared about was becoming an NHL hockey player. And I was on the path, and then I kind of veered off a bit, and the women or girls came into my life, and that was kind of it, right? But,
Damn women.
to go back to my childhood, we're gonna speed it up to about 15 years old. So 15 years old comes, and actually, I'm going to tell you something else because it's important for people to hear this. Um, my mom, there was a time where she wanted to walk again, and she was trying to do that, doing therapy. And I remember a man used to come over, and he modified one of those exercise bikes so that my mom could sit in her wheelchair and still pedal without getting on the bike.
Right.
So she would be behind the bike. And so that left the seat open. So what I would do is I would get in front of her and I would coach her on. I would get her going because I wanted
That's
her to walk.
awesome.
Right? So we did that together. And I would like cheer her on and I remember wanting her to walk so bad. And then out of nowhere, she just gave up and didn't want to do it anymore.
Hmm.
And I remember that feeling I had, like she was not just giving up on herself, but like she was giving up on me.
Right.
And I, that's so today, my never say die attitude, it comes from watching my mom quit that day and making a decision that I don't ever want to feel as low as she
Right.
must have felt when she made that decision.
Right.
So,
And
did
that
you
must
want?
have been hard. I was just to say that must have been hard. And as somebody who had a parent that was chronically in pain, when your parents are in that much pain, sometimes they don't even realize just how they're being towards us, right? And I can remember my dad at his lowest was he was very mean and miserable, not to me, but just that was his demeanor. And I said, and negative, and I said to him, I said, I pulled over because at 4 o'clock in the morning I used to take him to Leamington Hospital for treatments, pain treatments. And I would say to him, you have 2 seconds to say something positive or else you're getting and you're walking the rest of the way to the hospital. So I think when they get into that mindset, and especially if they're in a lot of pain, pain does something to them. It has been my experience.
Yeah, and you know what? We can only imagine what it's like to be in their shoes. So,
Yeah.
it must be frustrating to like you can't move at least a portion of your body. But yeah, I'll tell you, whenever I was acting up around my mom, I made sure I was on her left side. Trust me. So it came in handy a little bit.
Did you get the Board of Education? That's what my grandfather used to call it. He had a paddle, and if grandkids stepped out of line, it was like said he was going to use the Board of Education.
um, so what I was going to say was I'm speaking about a pivotal moment in my life. This is where my whole world changed. So up to 15 years old, I believed that they were my parents. So 15, I'm just being a regular kid. I come downstairs, I eat some breakfast, and my mom says to me, "Do you want to meet your mom today?" Just like that. There was no build up. There was no, okay, honey, we need to sit down. We need to have a chat. It was just boom. Do you want to meet your real mom today? I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought you were my mom. What do you? I thought it was a joke. I didn't even. So she says to me, um, well, she's coming over shortly. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like just like that. And I'm going through. I have about 10 minutes to wrap my mind around everything she just said, and the fact that this woman is going to come to the door, and I'm going to meet her for the first time.
Mhm.
So it just goes to show, like, depending on who it is, though that generation they handled things differently, and the way
Yes.
they handled that, they don't really understand how many years it took me to recover all the damage that was done in terms of like I had an identity crisis. Like I couldn't figure out, who the hell I was. I had a lot of questions. I pronounced words a certain way. Um, I was attracted to certain types of women, like, certain cultures, certain music. And I just had questions like, what things don't make sense. I don't think things are adding up. So that's when I started asking questions. And I guess I ended up with the answer that day because this woman comes in and I look and it's my Aunt Rosie. And I'm like, the hell? This is a joke. Now I believe it's a joke. And I hung out with Aunt Rosie many times. At least that's what I called her. And then come to find out, Aunt Rosie was 15 years old when she had me. And she had no one because her family back then, if you were 15 and you were a girl and you had a kid, they shunned you. They casted you out. You're a failure. Bye. So she had nowhere to go. And my mom that I grew up with, one in the wheelchair, she was her aunt. So my mom that raised me was my great aunt, and I had no idea. And so when Aunt Rosie came in, um, that was the first time as at 15 that I met her as my mom, like the title. And I really didn't know. It was very awkward. Didn't know what to say, what to do. But I remember, how holding resentment for my folks.
Mhm.
Not so much my dad because he didn't. I didn't feel the responsibility was on him to tell me. And I'll tell you why. Because my mom, the one in the wheelchair, when I say my mom, I mean the one that raised me.
Right.
I'm never going to be referring to the biological one because she wasn't in the picture. But I did skip this part. My dad, and the reason I love him so much is because he was a truck driver at the time when I came to be in his life, and they couldn't have kids because my mom she kept having miscarriages, so she didn't want to go through that anymore. So she decided to say yes when my biological mom asked her to take care of me, and when my dad came home from being a trucker, he walks in with, there was no cell phone, so she couldn't call him up and warn him.
Right.
So he had to wait. He had to find out walking in the door. So he walks in the door and she's holding me. And that's how he found out that they had a kid. Most men would have just said, "You didn't talk to me. I'm out. Bye."
Yep.
And I hear stories from multiple people that he walked in and she told him the deal, and he not only stuck around, but he actually held me and he wouldn't let me go. So when I
Oh,
hear those stories, that's
right.
what I love that man. He didn't have to do that, and we just went out to dinner today with my kids, so he really he understood the assignment. Put it that way. And
I love that saying. For those of you that have ever watched TikTok, they had this trend going, and it's like understand the assignment. So that's the first thing I think of when you said that. But no, that is so true. And you're right. Some guys would not have stuck around. So that is awesome.
yeah,
Great guy.
um, so just wanted to go back to that moment. I met her. So now, you know, I have questions. My mind's racing now. I have a million questions. Why didn't I already know this? Why did you guys hide it that way? Why was I calling you Aunt Rosie? Why didn't you just tell me? Like I just felt like so played because today these kids are 15. You can't hide nothing from them.
Yep.
And they're like 10 times smarter than I was when I was 15. So um, I just couldn't. I don't know why it happened like that, but it was very common. And I remember feeling different being adopted, feeling like no one wanted you. And that was something I carried for a long time in my life. We'll get to that later. But so I asked her many questions. Number one was, well, who's my dad? I want to know who my real father is, right? Because I want to know my roots. And she told me his name. I don't really need to say it here, but she told me his name. And I carried it for years. I didn't know where to look, where to start, who to ask, so I just kept it in my head and I never forgot it. So let's fast forward about 4 or 5 years later. I'm on prom date with my girlfriend at Walkerville High School,
Woohoo.
and she's with her best friend. And her best friend, her name is Carmen, and she's got her boyfriend there, uh, Adam. And so us four, we go to the prom. We have a good time. We had gotten motel together, side by side, and we all kind of drank together and had some talks and well, some laughs. My best friend was there as well with his girlfriend. Seemed like a really good night, and it was. It still ended up being one, but just unexpected. So we're talking. The drinks are flowing. People are, opening up about stuff, and I end up saying my real father's name. And Carmen drops her drink and starts crying. And everyone in the room's like, what? No, what did he say something? Like, what's going on? And I'm confused. I had no idea what was happening. And Adam, her boyfriend, says to me, "Y'all got the same dad." And
Oh my.
everything took a turn. And that's how I met my sister, by accident.
On a date. Oh, I don't mean to be laughing, but that's like ironic. Like seriously,
It's
that
always,
is like wow.
yeah. And so she starts crying. I run out of the room. I'm trying to collect my thoughts. I start crying. I go back in the room. We embrace, and we end up, having a great night. And they became. She's my sister, and he became my brother-in-law. And
Wow.
she opened the doors to me finding my roots, my family. I now know that I wouldn't be on this interview with you if it wasn't for a brave man that escaped a plantation in North Carolina. I know my roots. Like, I know how we got here. Our family has a book.
Wow.
I believe it's The Road to Somewhere. And if you could pick it up somewhere, it's a local book, but that's my family roots.
Right.
And so she meant so much. She was pivotal to my, to knowing my identity, to knowing my heritage, my culture, everything.
Mhm.
So because of her, I was able to actually meet my father for the first time, and I did. I remember that day was very wild. You're, just being a young man, 19 years old, my heart was pounding like crazy walking up to the house where he's at. I don't know what to expect or anything. But I meet him, and we look almost alike, and it was, we embraced, and we shared some stories, but there was some stuff going on, like internally with him, that he didn't want to tell me about,
Mhm.
and I had to learn. But needless to say, within 72 hours of me staying with him at that place, he was beating his girlfriend in front of me. And
Wow.
I just met, like, think of yourself like you're a man. You just meet your son after 19 years missing,
Mhm.
and you're doing that, and you have no problem that your son's standing there. So that was, and I talked to my dad, and I said, I'm supposed to meet this man. What do you think? You think I should? And he told me no, he doesn't. He's like, some things you just don't need to bother, because if they wanted you or if they cared, they would have come for you long time ago. And
Right.
to be honest with you, I think he was right. Even when I heard him, I did listen and I did believe he was right. But there's that curiosity that you have. That's why I had the question. That's why I had to see him. I
Mhm.
had to find him. And as soon as I saw him do that to his girlfriend, my dad's voice is in my head. He was right. I knew it right away, and I felt awful. I remember I had to excuse myself, and I was tearing up, and I wanted to leave, and I did. And the next few times that I met him, it was just all negative. Like, he drug use and stuff like that.
Right.
And so that was a disappointment. But I also was able to, like, his brothers and sisters, who are my aunts and my uncles, I was able to, go and see them, and meet other family members, my cousins, and it. every day, even to now, I'm still meeting family because I was adopted, and it's
Right.
crazy. So my life, I'll be at Walmart and someone will look at me and like, you look like somebody, and I'll say my real dad's name, and they're like, oh my God, you're my nephew, or this or that. So I get that all the time.
So, do you still stay in contact with your real sister?
Unfortunately, see, I didn't get to that, but 2020, both my brother-in-law and my sister passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that was very
Yeah.
difficult. It was unfortunate. It was drug use. They were looking for one thing and they ended up getting another, and it was
Oh,
cheaper.
wow.
And they left behind six kids. So I have
Wow.
four nieces and one nephew,
Oh,
and it
wow.
really tore up the family. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. And getting back to, you're second guessing yourself about seeing your dad. I think everybody's natural instinct is to like, no, I need to know. Because, you were it's so young when you found out that your mom and your dad isn't your real mom and dad. And I think it just more than curiosity is needing to know because that's who you are. Like there was a piece of you missing. So I don't think that I don't know of a lot of us that probably would have had the same thing as you. It's just like, no, I gotta know. Sometimes I feel like I should be adopted in my family, but my parents are my parents. And I love both my parents, but we're different. Oh, I mean, I look like my mom. There's no denying who I am. So, but uh, you could always just fluff it off and say, "Oh, it's okay. I'm adopted." I'm just bringing a little bit of lightheartedness to that. So, but Andrew, what an incredible story. And here you are. So, is that why you've dedicated your life to helping other people and being a life coach?
No, there was so much more I didn't even get to.
Well, go ahead, share.
Yeah, so uh, my life is a book, and that's just kind of how I feel. But I might write one day. I'm not sure, but
You should.
so where was I? um,
You had
so
just said that your sister and brother-in-law had passed away.
yes, well, we kind of skipped and went to that because you asked a
I
legitimate
is.
question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what happened. But so I'm trying to like take it through like certain years and lead up to now.
Mhm.
But so yeah, I met my father. That was disappointing, and I met my other family members. And to this day, I'm still meeting family, and we're close. Whenever I'm in a time of need, I'm able to call my first cousin now. And for a large portion of my life, I didn't even have that phone call. So you know, I think it's amazing how life works and brings people in our we cross paths at a certain time, and some people they're meant to remain in your life, and some aren't. So
Mhm.
I've learned that a lot. But so fast forward from I'm 19. Let's go now. I had my daughter around 21. Beautiful uh, pregnancy. Everything went great. My daughter was 2 years old at this point, and she was a joy. Such an easy, like, for I would recommend having my daughter as a first kid for everyone because she was an epic baby. She was the best. She, just, she wouldn't even make noise when she woke up. She would just stand there and smile at you and wait for you to come and get her. So she was a bundle of joy. But you know, I I didn't get along with the mom because I was young and dumb. And kind of we're both kind of dumb, but I was the worst one. And
Kudos for you for acknowledging that, though. Seriously.
I'll be the first one. Yeah, there's so much I dislike about who I used to be. And when you're able to step outside yourself and look in,
Mhm.
you can really understand how dumb or how awful or how ignorant you are. So I just, I had enough. So, but I had to, I had a baby now, or I had a 2-year-old girl, so I had to get a job, and I did, and I saved some money up, and I got them. I got paid first and last for a house for them to live in. the idea was that I was going to join them, and I was still just wanted to play video games and just be young because I screwed up my life and didn't wear a rubber, if you will. Um, so, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say I want to do that now. I want to revert. I never really I don't my own fault. I never really had a childhood because I always felt that I had to be like the mom and take care of everybody because my parents were not well a lot growing up. So I grew up fast like you did. And it's just like now I'm like 46 and now I just don't want to do anything. I would maybe not play video games, but maybe just do nothing but volunteer all day is what I
Yeah.
would love to do and get paid for it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. So if anybody's listening and wants to give me that job, I would be more than happy to take that on because I feel you, brother.
Um, sorry, I lost track.
You wanted to play video games. You bought the house
Yeah,
and you
yeah, I
needed a
got them in
job.
the house and I was supposed to join the mom and my daughter. And I skipped something. She was also that the reason I got the house is because she was pregnant with twin boys.
Wow.
And yeah, and we didn't see that coming either, but we definitely started planning. For me, it was a big leap. Like I'm going to go from the old son living in the dad's house to, all right, you're starting your family now, right? And I had a hard time transitioning. Just hard headed and definitely scared. I was internally scared. Didn't know if I could live up to the task or whatever. But we tried it. I moved in and we everything was fine. And then when she had the pregnancy or the birth, there was some complications. That it was a monoamniotic pregnancy, so that's 1% of women have that. That's where
Right.
the twins share the same sac. They were identical as well, so they looked the same and had the same symptoms and everything, right? So they needed blood transfusions. They were 3 months premature, so when they came out, they didn't look. It was scary. It was very scary.
Right.
Um, and I remember the discharge meeting. They said to us that they're planning on sending the boys home, and we specifically told them, we don't feel comfortable with them coming home yet. They're not. They just started eating. Like, what are you talking about? They need to like bulk up a bit. Like, how about we don't just put that on two young people and
Mhm.
and unfortunately we didn't say those words. We didn't stand up for ourselves. We were pushed out the door, and
Right.
that's how we felt anyway. But we tried to make the best of it. Obviously we were always gentle and loving to our kids. But one morning, because we every 3 hours the boys needed to eat, so we were on like three, and then six, and then nine, and so on and so forth. So the mom had the 3 a.m. feed. I had the 6 a.m. So I got up at 6 a.m. and I remember I grabbed Julius first. I fed him, and when I brought him back, my son Jaden was blue. And I picked him up and he was cold and I started freaking out. So I gave him whatever CPR I could because they didn't actually train us to do that. And
Right.
that's another part of the problem. But anyways, as very as gentle as I could be, I breathed in air. I had her call 911. Everything kind of, it's kind of a blur. I remember passing him to the firemen, and they worked on him, and their sense of urgency was, it was incredible. Unfortunately, it didn't, in the end, it didn't work. But I remember being down on my knee and I'm bawling, and I don't know if my son's going to make it. And I feel a hand on my shoulder, and it's a fireman. And that's why I told Mark the other day, when we were talking, that I have respect for firemen. So that's why, because I'll never forget that. And then I had another weak moment, and same thing. I felt a hand on my shoulder in support, and it was a cop. It was a police officer, and he is crying. And I'm like, why is this man crying? I'm so confused, but I'm crying. And he tells me that he lost a child 4 months prior, so he feels it for me. He was at this moment where it's two men. It's not a police officer and a citizen anymore. It's man to
Right.
man. And I didn't see the badge. I didn't see the uniform. And if I could meet that man again today, I would love to, because that's probably the last time I seen him. But that it's things like that that I remember. But I think the worst part was fast forward, we had to go to London, and what happened was they said that my boys had fractured skulls, and when you say that, you know, obviously the shit show is going to start. I'm sorry for my,
No.
but
Sure. Say it like it is, brother.
yeah. So I didn't know if this was PG or G rated. I'm not sure.
Unless it's getting extremely vulgar, I'll allow the cuss words.
um, so yeah, obviously the children's aid, police investigation, everything was involved. They took our kids away within 24 hours. My daughter had to go live with her grandfather. He couldn't keep her, so my daughter ended up long term with my dad, her other grandfather. So, um, and then we had visits. Actually, we couldn't even get visits till later. But so remember, keep that in mind. Fractured skull. So we go to London now. Within 48 hours, the first thing we find out is they don't have fracture skulls. They don't. The Windsor just doesn't have the technology. They thought that, but they were wrong. And we get to London, we find that out. So right away, we're like, "Well, give us our kids back." You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, what are we doing here? But once this goes through in the pro, in like in the once the process starts, you're locked in until it goes through court. That's
Right.
just the way it is.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what they said. Uh, you're still under the microscope. They're still doing an investigation, and obviously, they have to figure out what's going on, like what happened. So what it was, both boys had bleeding in the brain, and they're identical twins. So given the pregnancy was also at risk, which is why they had the babies 3 months premature. It was a
Right.
forced pregnancy because my son Jaden wasn't getting any food, so he was going to die because Julius was stocking up on all his meals. So
Poor kid.
Julius was chunky and Jaden was very 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 tiny. So
Right.
um, so we're gonna fast forward a bit. Um, we still don't have answers. We just know there's bleeding in the brain. And now my son Jaden can't breathe on his own. He's on the machine, and they they set a meeting with us, and they tell us the worst news ever, that he's never going to recover. And I sometimes I regret just believing that, and maybe I should have been more hopeful. Maybe he would have pulled through. Um, I don't like to do that too much because that can wreck a man.
Yes.
And I did that for a while, and it didn't contribute to my growth, put it that way. So we felt like they were doing a great job at convincing us, and we were young, and we just kind of went with it, and we ended up having to pull the plug. Worst moment of my life, standing there with the mom and the priest, and just seeing that line, you know, go flat. So that was not something I would recommend anyone to go through. Losing a child is very unique. And, some people would say, I don't know who would say this, but I've heard people say stuff like this before, that, well, it's better when they're younger because you didn't really know them. But here's the thing: when you're a parent and you have a child, even if it's 6 months or even if it's in the belly, you start planning, you start
Mm.
painting the room, you get things, you have plans for this child, and you have a vision. And when all that's taken away, that is just as bad as any age, or a young age, or it doesn't matter. It never goes away.
Right.
So We're going through that. Now we got to go through court. Um, we don't have time to grieve. So we're constantly fighting because we're going through the worst thing at the same time, and we live in the same house.
Right.
And then ultimately, they convince the mom that if she's ever going to have a chance to get the kids back, that she needs to separate from me. And I had an assault charge when I was younger, just downtown being stupid. And it was, first offense, it doesn't go on your record, right? But
Right.
when police are looking into you, they can still see that stuff. And so they profiled both of us, and they decided they're going to go with this guy had a history of violence, so we're going to put this on him, and we're going to start looking into him. So they started to come up with the angle that he did it. She needs to get away from him, and she did. She actually went and moved with her friend because they convinced her that she would never get her kids back otherwise. She didn't actually think or believe that I did anything. Neither of us did. But they caught her in a weak moment, and she did it because her lawyer also advised her to. And so just to put it into perspective, I am a man with a family at the house with a dog, and now everything's gone. And I'm standing in a house that I can't keep anymore. And I lost my kids, I lost my dignity, and I didn't want to live anymore.
Right.
I partied, I drank, I did a couple drugs. Um, and I just remember thinking the most important thing in my life was, where are we drinking tonight?
Hmm.
And I felt so inadequate, so out of place, so lost. And now I have to live in a student room, not a house, in a room. So I had these four walls I'm staring at all day, and I just knew I didn't want to be here anymore. And I don't know what kept me going. I don't know if it was the people, if it was the drinks or the party nights, or just that voice inside that knew that I shouldn't be where I'm at.
Right.
Probably a combination of all of it. But um, I remember going to visit, my daughter, who now her life is, where's mom and dad? They were just here. What's going on? She has no idea what's going on.
Right.
And so every time I would go see my daughter, I would just start crying, and I didn't want to do that because it would scare her. So it was just the hardest thing to go through. And now Julius, because we lost Jaden, now Julius is in. He's recovered. He's out of the hospital, and now he's in the care of the Children's Aid.
Hmm.
And so now we have visitations with him, but a case aide has to sit there while we're visiting. And we just felt like, they're really making us look like bad parents. Like we have to do drug tests, we have to do parenting courses, we got to go through all these hoops, which to get our kids back. And I remember I used to smoke weed, and I we had to take those drug tests. I'll tell you this, I never failed one. I passed every single one because my vision was I wanted the kids back.
Right.
And so um, we go through court. We had to wait for the coroner's report, and the coroner's report came, and it was unequivocal. There was three options, and none of them were abuse. That's what I wanted to say. So they cleared our name, and now the process starts for the kids to return home, which took another 6 to 8 months after
Right.
it's this is where this is going. So that was also frustrating, going to every date and thinking today's the day, and the judge is like, no, it's not. We're still going to be waiting, and that just caused so much pain and suffering. But at least we knew that finish line is coming. So I remember getting that call from the lawyer, and she said, "You need to get a house now. You need to get yourself together now because that's how we're gonna get them to get these kids home as soon as possible." So long behold, about 48 hours after that phone call, I got a call for I guess I applied for a job and I didn't remember. And
I can kind of see God's hand on your life the entire time you're telling me your story, Andrew. I can see it. It may not seem like it at the time when you're in it, but I can truly see. I can hear it. And first of all, I just want to say so sorry for the loss of your son, because I mean that would be devastating at any age. But you yourself being a young father, you
Yes.
know, um, wow,
So
I just feel for you.
2 years later, well, we get the kids back and we're home now, but unfortunately, it's 2010 now, and my mom never even got to see the boys, and she passed away in 2010, right before they came home. So that was a
I'm so
kick in the stomach, um, and it caused a lot of problems for me, depression. I was like a landslide. So, fast forward, we're in a toxic relationship. It's like we went through the blender and we weren't the same on the other side. And so we ended up splitting up, and I ended up with custody of the kids, which doesn't normally happen for fathers. So, I'm blessed to have been able to spend all that time, go to every practice, every game, and all that. But it just makes me wonder, if the boys, nothing happened, what would have came of us,
Mhm.
would we have stayed a family? So, but I was ignorant and mean and selfish back then, somewhat narcissistic, and it was a long road for me to get to where I am now. So I think of the biggest reason I do this life coaching work now is, I want to help people because of all the people I didn't help, because of all the people who I entered their life and made their life worse. I want to do the reverse now because I feel like I owe it to the universe. That's kind of how I think. So, yeah. And, losing my brother and sister in 2020, that also really hurt me. Um, there's a card right behind my head here. Can you see it?
Yep. Yep.
That is their card. I keep it here in my music studio. I built this studio because me and my brother-in-law had plans to build a studio, and I did it in his honor. And I try to make some pretty beautiful music in here
Great.
to kind of show love towards him and keep our dream alive because we both had a dream together.
Great.
But yeah, I'm here
Andrew, you
today.
have such an impactful story, and I want you to know, give yourself the grace. You were a young kid. You had a lot go on in your life. You had devastating blows along the way that could have took would have took most kids out. But here you are today, sharing your story as a hope and a testimony for other kids that have made that decision, and maybe may not have made the right choice at the right time, but have learned from it. So man, you are just really an inspiration to me. You're an inspiration to anybody that's out there listening right now. And I just really want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. And if I know a lot of people can identify with, you know, a series of events that have happened in their lives, but then you never gave up and you kept going until you got custody of your kids, and
Yeah,
making a powerful story, overcoming story for them. That's a powerful legacy that you're giving your kids, by the way. You know, that is a powerful legacy. Um, so I just want to, because I know that you're crushed for time tonight, I just
yeah.
want to bring on our amazing Tazima Peri. Welcome to the show, Tazima. How are
Hey
you?
there. I'm feeling well. How are you all?
Wow. Wow. I'm
Mm,
inspired after listening to
yeah.
Andrew's story. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I just truly inspired. And so Tazima is tonight, Kimberly is off in the Washington, D.C. And so we
Mm,
have the amazing Tazima here. And so she's going to share a little bit. Now we have what's called the fundamentals section of the show. So we, sometimes we do go a little bit deep in the beginning, and so we're going to have a little bit of fun at the end to leave our viewers on a positive, powerful setup for the week. I mean, Andrew's story was powerful to begin with, but
Yeah,
now we're just
absolutely.
going to tip it over. So Tazima, can you, I love what Tazima does. I know, but the rest of you don't. So Tazima, can you share with us what it is that you do?
Sure. So I'm Tazima Paris, a sex coach and pleasure mentor for grown ass women. So I help women to identify their needs and communicate them in ways that their partners can understand. And I also I'm a disruptor of the women's empowerment movement, because what I find is that if we're not talking about sex or women's experience in sex in the personal growth arena, if we're not talking about this really super fundamental aspect of feminine power, then we're not really doing as much as we could, because that is one of the most significant drains on women's energy, is anxiety or upset around their personal relationships, especially around sex, or their personal freedom around their sexuality and their expression. So I think it's super important. I like to talk about it in a really practical way, practical and fun way. And yeah,
Yes, you do. And that's why I love you, because you are just so real and raw and out there, and I love it.
Yes, indeed.
So, what is the one? Okay, because if you say something, if you say this one wrong, it really gets to Zima. So, what is it? Give us a small tip for our viewers. The correct, it's the correct. What I forget, is it the correct pronunciation for a woman's genital? Because I know that really gets you going.
Yeah, it does get me going. And there's a reason. It's because when we only call it a vagina, it takes the pleasure away from women, and it just focuses on the pleasure of men, because the vagina is technically just the hallway from the uterus to the outside world. It is not the outer genitals at all. The vulva is actually what's included, and that's where the primary women's pleasure comes from, is from the vulva and the outside genital areas, just like for men. And by the way, men have an outie and women have an innie. It's the same stuff, just arranged in a different way. So if you don't pay attention to our part of our outie that is on the outside, then yeah, you're not going to have access to the beauty and pleasure that is women's sexuality and fun in the bed, or wherever you happen to be engaging in activities.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the bed, folks.
Sure doesn't. Sure
Just
doesn't.
saying. The van worked perfectly fine too.
Wow, this show really took a turn, eh?
It did. And I see you guys compliment each other, because I mean you're both are amazing people, and and you're both coaches, so which I love that about you, and I didn't even think about that, and I didn't set Tazima up. Actually, Kimberly set Tazima up to be here tonight. But it's just you guys match so well on that. Like it's the yin and the yang of everything here. So I love that. And Tazima, where can people get a hold of you to set an appointment and find out more about you in all your glory?
So you can go to my website, which is infiniterelating.com. You can also find me on Instagram. Instagram is actually a pretty good place to get like kind of the current what I'm up to. When I update, it's usually there. And also you can, on either my website or on Instagram in the links there, you can set up a time for an initial chat if you actually have questions, or you want to improve the connection or communication inside of your relationship. I'm happy to help you to help women to do that. If you are a man, yes, I do help men, especially highly anxious or people pleaser men. Those are also my guys. Men who really care deeply about their partners and want them to be pleased. I do help those men as well. But yeah, my ladies are high achievers, but they're also people pleasers. So they're badasses, but also they do too much for other people, and they're on the last on their list. So those are my folks.
Damn.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we will.
I don't know. Did that resonate a little bit?
No, not at all.
Right, Dorothy?
Not at all. Not at all. Wow. Okay. And so, Tazima, what? Okay. I'm going to go ladies first. I'm not going to give you a choice. I'm just going to go to ladies first tonight. So, the three fundamentals. What are your three fundamentals? And Andrew, do you remember yours?
Do I remember mine?
Yeah. I'm only asking so that you could. Some people forget what they put down on their sheet, and normally I send it back to you.
I
So
probably don't remember.
okay, so Tazima, so you know what fundamentals are. They're
I do.
like if you were to leave the planet Earth tomorrow, what are the three things that you want people to remember you by? Is what fundamentals are. So we'll have Tazima go first.
Yes, so for me, it's especially specifically for women. This is not a rule that goes across both genders or all genders. This is for people who are born female and have female hormones and are actively like women who identify as women, but like with female hormones. So one of the things that I is my kind of signature thing that I do is helping women to prioritize pleasure because pleasure is feminine fuel. And in order to prioritize pleasure, what you've got to do is personalize, prepare, and prioritize, which is third, but it should be first. But let me get to it. So, personalize is that is that only you like what you like. So when it comes to pleasure, like other people's pleasures are not necessarily yours. So the things that are personal to you, of things that you like, no one else is going to be able to anticipate what that is. Only you really know what that is. And some of us keep our pleasures to ourselves. They're so personal that we don't even share them with anybody, and that can be problematic. And so to prepare, sometimes you might have to share with someone. So, hey, in order for this pleasure to occur, I need to set myself up so that the pleasure can happen. So I might need to communicate, hey, partner of mine or children or whomever is in my life, either I don't want to be bothered right now, give me an hour, or I would like for you to participate or facilitate this activity for me. So this is a vulnerable process through which we have to identify, and then to be able to like prepare and get it set up. Because if you're the last on your list, you're not doing anything to prepare for your own pleasure. It's not happening. You're making sure everybody else is, oh, everybody got everything. Oh, you're running around and then like you're exhausted and then you can't even stay awake through the whole show that you like. So it's terrible. Do I know my ladies or do I know my ladies? All right.
Were you at my house Friday night? The cameras were everywhere.
Yeah.
I fell asleep on the movie that Kimberly told me that I had to watch.
Yeah.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
No idea what the middle was.
Were you exhausted? Yeah.
Well, and I had, to be quite transparent, I had a drink or maybe two. And so I was tired from a long week.
End of the day. Do you see this? And so this brings me to the third fundamental, which is to prioritize. So it's not just to make it happen and prepare, but like actually bring it to the top of your list and the top of your day so that you can be nourished by that pleasure. Like I said, pleasure is feminine fuel. It's what helps us to show up in a better, more authentic, more potent way as women. If we do that, we're not going to get distracted, especially for the women that I help who are they're super awesome. They achieve a lot. They're doing the most. They're really good at what they do, and so much so that people call them in for help. So I'm not worried about these high achieving women that they're going to get distracted because they decide to take 5 extra minutes to savor their coffee. I'm not pressed about that. That's not going to happen, and I'm fully aware of that, which is why I share for these women to take that 5 minutes at the beginning of the morning, whether it's to meditate or whether it's to listen to your favorite song and shake your booty in the shower. I don't care. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy and bring it to the top of the day. So prioritize top of the day, top of your list, and then see what happens. Don't take my word for it. Go ahead and run it through for yourself. See how that goes. And then call me and let me know how it goes.
I love that. I start the first hour of my day for me. Yeah. It's between me and God and my exercise room.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Oh, I love all of that. I don't know what y'all waiting for. Go over to Instagram. Go find Miss Tazima over here and book your appointment today. Like right now. Go do it. Don't walk, run. You women who are people pleasers that put yourself last. including in pleasure. Okay, enough of that because I know Andrew's gotta go soon here. So Andrew, I know that I just want people to know, because we talked about your amazing wings and in your experiences, but just briefly, tell us a little bit about your coaching, who it is that you coach, and that first, and then go into your fundamentals.
Okay, so I run Mason Soul Solutions, MAISON or not VILE. Sorry, that's my name. But anyways, Mason Soul Solutions. So I focus on teens, single parents, men and women, and all four of them. I'm trying to help them break the barriers that hold them back. Much of them are their habits. Much of them is lack of self love. So these are the types of things that I'm helping them with. Just look at a personal trainer, will guide you in the gym, motivate you, get you going, uplift you, Well, I'm doing that when you're going into the kitchen and you want to make a bad decision. When you're going in the bathroom and you're looking in the mirror and you don't like the person you see. I'm trying to help that stuff. And I'm coming from a different angle. I think that if more people did that, or if they had that when I was younger, or even encouraged men to open up more when I was younger, it would have definitely made a difference in my life because I was taught to bottle everything up when indeed I should have let it out. So I'm trying to come on a different angle. I'm not a counselor, I'm a builder.
Love that.
And then I started the catering business. It was side hustle, was nothing big, but now it seems like it could be. So I'm just going to keep the momentum going. I make oven baked chicken wings, more healthy. So if someone's in the fitness world and they want to eat chicken wings, they come to me, or you can, because you can eat a pound or 2 pounds of my wings, and you won't feel like you would off of battered, deep fried, sauced up wings. So I do dry rub. I do never frozen, only made fresh. So there's a whole different dynamic you're getting from me. It's full flavor. Dorothy knows.
It's
And
quite the experience, guys. You need to do it if you're in the Windsor and surrounding areas. Windsor, Ontario, not Windsor, England. Because when I tell people I'm from Windsor, they think I'm from England. It's Windsor, Ontario, Canada. You need to come over here and create and get the experience with the King's Wings. I'm telling you.
yeah, that's about it. And my three fundamentals. I don't know what I wrote, but I'll tell you what I believe they are. Self love, because that runs the show.
Yep.
Self inspiration
Oops.
and self motivation.
Perfect. Love it. And that's basically what you wrote on your sheet. So good for you for remembering. And I just want to honor our time here. So thank you both so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having Tazima on and you, Andrew, and stay tuned because May 1st, there's going to be another episode, and Andrew's part of this with four. I had four amazing guys on this episode that we're talking about when we're talking about men's vulnerability. This tonight was like tonight was the cake. You're going to get the icing on May 1st. So join us May 1st because this is the icing to the cake of all this. And I just really want to say thank you to our sponsor tonight, Be Oily with Bonnie. Bonnie is an technique certified and has helped hundreds of people get matched with the correct oil needed. After my father passed away, my mom was experiencing some anxious feelings. Bonnie asked me her symptoms and quickly identified the oil needed. My mom used this product to help her achieve emotional wellness. So thank you, Bonnie, for helping my mom. So her information is up here. Give her a call at 810-414-0929 or go to beoilywithbonnie.com. Again, go check out Tazima and go check out Andrew on their social media pages and their website. All Andrew's stuff is on the show notes, and Tazima, I put your information in the comments. So check that out, folks. I'm telling you, these are powerful people here, people you want to connect with. So go over to their profiles right now, check them out and add them to your network. And remember, guys, be unstoppable in all that you do, and bye.